Well, welcome again to another Cutting Edge show. I'm Omar Neal, the former mayor of Tuskegee, Alabama, host of the You Got the Power talk show, but I'm the co-host of this wonderful program called The Cutting Edge. The Cutting Edge is a show where we discuss all things health and wellness, COVID-19 and beyond. We are going to have an extremely incredible show today. We're going to technically talk about reimagining our criminal justice system, safety's new era. We'll be talking with some really extraordinary people. Our panelists are just top notch in terms of really understanding and really coming up with new and innovative ways to address the issues of justice in our country. We have one of our very own, you know her, you see her here on the cutting edge all the time. This is Dr. Sharon Gibbs Cooper. She's the case manager software, case management software manager at the Institute for Governmental Services and Research. And we also have a new friend of ours. He is the Honorable Judge Alexander Williams Jr. He's retired now, but he's doing a really great thing. He's the director of the Judge Alexander Williams Center for Education, Justice, and Ethics. And we have a new friend. She's an attorney, but she said just call her Lauren Haggerty. She is the Chief of Staff and Senior Counsel to the Attorney General for the District of Columbia. So you see, we have a power-packed show, and we look forward to really engage in authentic conversations about this notion of the justice system in our country. Well, I don't do this by myself. I got this dude I hang out with each and every cutting edge. His name is Dr. Stephen B. Thomas. We call him Dr. T amongst these parts. He's the professor at the University of Maryland School of Public Health and director of the Center for Health Equity at the University of Maryland. He is my friend. He's a brother from another mother. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming my co-host, none other than Dr. Stephen B. Thomas. Hey, Dr. T, how you doing, man?
Mayor, it's always good when I'm in the same space with you. And today I had to call on the ancestors and bring out Frederick Douglass, recognizing that we do have the power.
Right.
And I did a civil rights tour, and I walked across that Edmund Pettus Bridge.
Yeah.
And I remember the TV images. I was just a kid at the time, and recognizing that it's an ongoing struggle. So we call this show focused on health and wellness, COVID-19 and beyond. Today's show is about the beyond, one of those social determinants of health in our community. And I'm so excited to have some new friends on and some colleagues. Both Judge Williams and Sharon Gibbs Cooper are at the University of Maryland College Park. And I think it's important for us to show the flag and the academy making a difference in the everyday lives of everyday people living under the conditions of structural racism and all the other issues we face here in this country. And yet, we showed during the pandemic, we can still move the needle.
Right. I know you're talking about the affirmative action decision that Supreme Court came out with today. That's why you went and got your little shirt, right? I saw you when you pulled up. You ain't have to blow.
I just recognize that we need to keep faith. We need to keep hope alive because we have been through this.
Right.
Doesn't have to be dogs coming at you.
Right.
But these are the infrastructure components that have both opened up the gates for us to make progress.
Right.
And those gates can be closed. We got to pay attention. We did a whole show on civic engagement a while back.
Right.
And what we're going to talk about tonight also has to do with civic engagement.
I mean, you have to realize that, you have to always fight for justice. It's never a permanent thing. And inclusion. And that's why we're trying to make this a more perfect union, right? And as we perfect the union, we have to challenge systems. It was Frederick Douglass, since you gonna put him on your T-shirt. He said, "Power succeeds nothing
That's right.
without a demand. It never has and never will." So as we put his image out, let's put his spirit out.
That's right.
Power succeeds nothing without a demand. It never has and never will. And we have to always demand justice, not justice for some, but justice for all. All right.
And Mary, just one more thing from Frederick. He said, we need to agitate, agitate, agitate.
Right.
And for those of us in the academy who aren't used to being in that space, it's now time to step into that space. We have to agitate.
When you washing clothes, there has this little thing that goes around that calls for the clothes to move around, and that's what it does. It agitates.
That's
You
what they
can't even
call it.
clean clothes unless you have agitation.
There you go.
You got it. So we need to be able to do that, and as John Lewis said, get into some good trouble.
There you go.
While we're doing it. Okay. All right, man. We don't do this by ourselves. We got the team behind the scene that makes up our support system, headed up by Meg Jordan, our technical director, Maggie Daly, assistant technical director, and I'm sad to say that this is technically Maggie's last show as in her current capacity. She's going to med school.
There we go. Snap her up.
Absolutely. And in fact, this is her show.
That's right.
We gave her a complete carte blanche over what kind of show we would have for her last show. And this is the show she chose.
That's right.
And these are the individuals she chose.
That's right.
So we are going to do, this is Maggie Daily Show.
All right.
Hey, Dr. T, this is the Daily Show.
There you go. Spell it right too.
Yeah. So that's what we're doing, right? And we have Saraya Khan, who does our social media, and she makes sure that we get out on all those social media platforms. And we have Elijah Pugh Jr., who's a sound designer. So, again, when you work with people as closely as we work together, obviously there's a whole, even thinking about not having Maggie with us, I get a little melancholy.
I hear you.
But because she has been such an integral part of the Cutting Edge show, and all we've done, even the iterations as we moved into these different iterations, she's been there with us, and very integral. The way that she does the newsletter is just impeccable. I mean, it's a work of art, the way that she does it, and the way that she's able to find articles and just put in the different things. All of the graphics that you see, that's what Maggie does.
That's Maggie.
So she's really, really good. And I know she's going to be an incredible physician. And so good luck to you, Maggie, and your family the door remain for you right here on the Cutting Edge. I always know that. All right. Well, Dr. T, you know that people can catch us on different platforms. We were talking about the different platforms that we're on. You can catch us on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter. Make sure that you like, subscribe, and share, and make sure that you stay in touch with us because we are always doing something. Now, we talked about the newsletter, but we do have a newsletter, and it comes out each and every week, even when we're not on the air.
That's
you
right.
Can always get the newsletter. You can use your QR code right now, and you can subscribe to our newsletter. But make sure you subscribe to the newsletter. It is an incredible document, and it also archive the different shows that we do, and we have also vignettes of previous guests that we do snippets of them and put those into the newsletter as well. So it's an absolute incredible document. So,
Mayor.
Yeah, go ahead.
Now more than ever, we have to keep the conversation going.
Right.
And I think that's exactly what we've been able to do with our newsletter. And we'll find out from the audience and the wellness warriors out there what they think, and begin to profile them as they are now continuing their work to address health disparities in the community.
Yeah, that's powerful. Well, Dr. T, you ready to get this ball rolling?
I got my seatbelt on.
You got to buckle your seatbelt. Let's bring up our first guest. And, she absolutely needs no introduction. She is Dr. Sharon Gibbs Cooper. She has been with us through all of our iterations. Dr. T, when she introduces herself, she always introduces herself as, I am the mentee of Dr. Stephen B. She really, whatever you did to really help her in terms of really getting to this space or assisting her in any way, she always gives you credits and kudos for that, man. And I can understand why, because we talk about mentorship all the time.
Yes.
You say are you a mentor or a tormentor?
There you go.
That's your thing. Well, you have been a mentor to Dr. Cooper. She's a regular on the cutting edge. So for us and for the people who watch the cutting edge, she needs no introduction. She is a sister from another mister.
There we go.
Ladies and gentlemen, please join us in welcoming our very own Dr. Sharon Gibbs Cooper. Hey, Dr. Cooper, how you doing? You need to unmute.
There you go.
Good evening. All is well, Mayor Neal. All is well, everybody.
It's so wonderful. And your smile, that. It lights up the universe. I mean, and we appreciate you so much, Dr. Cooper. And if you noticed that Maggie wanted you to be on her show, and it's not to say any bad thing about anybody else, but she chose you to be on this show, right?
Yeah, it's an honor. It's an honor, and I truly respect, and I am very, very humble to be asked to participate at this level. So I thank you all, and Maggie, thank you, and also good luck on your future endeavors, because you're going to continue to make an impact. I know it.
She's going to be a great doctor.
Oh, absolutely.
You already know whatever she does it with excellence, right?
Absolutely.
So, and she's also compassionate, and she also understands, that it's deeper than just the medicine. You also have to have relationships. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care, and she gets that.
And Mayor, in my contact list, she's listed as Fearless Maggie, because she hangs out in the barbershops with us.
That's right.
But I want to say something about Dr. Cooper before we open up. It was during her doctoral program. She has a doctorate in health administration, that I became her mentor and her capstone. And Mayor, her capstone project, her dissertation, was on the health advocates in reach and research. She did all the background work on the barbers and stylists and their training. And that was her dissertation. That's what she got her doctorate on. And then she helped them become certified community health workers with the state of Maryland. That would not have been possible without Dr. Cooper's help. So I want to snap her up for that. And for the history of all those folks out there, it takes everyone in their role to make a contribution, and together we are stronger. We're stronger together, Mayor.
Right. As they say down south, we love us some Dr. Cooper. That's right. We love us some Dr. Cooper. Yeah.
So tell us, Dr. Cooper, Diversion, that whole title.
Yes.
You talked about it when you come in, and now, what is that all about?
Well, diversion programs or interventions are alternatives to prison or jail.
Okay, stop right there. Alternatives to what?
Prison or jail.
Wow.
So we talk about the school to prison pipeline. You're talking about breaking that up.
Breaking that cycle of behavior and understanding that behavior that leads to criminal activity, that leads to, in this case, I'm going to focus on addictions. Right. And being able to connect individuals who are in the criminal justice system to the appropriate resources in order for them to get accessible care, care that's going to be long-term, and maintain sobriety. And also a component of these diversion programs, it looks at that whole, what we call patient or participant-centered approach. And what that involves is understanding those underlying factors or determinants that have placed me into the situation I am. And all we look at is the, from the surface, but we also have to look at those underlying conditions, such as education, employment, food insecurity, housing. Those are all contributors and criminal history. So what's that pipeline that leads me into criminal activity, and it also into using substances?
Right. That's powerful. I really want to get into that, because what we're doing is reimagining this. We recognize that it does not work, right?
It doesn't.
When recidivism is the way that it is, and
Right.
and the number of people we have incarcerated, we recognize that model doesn't work. So let's reimagine. Let's look at another way of doing this. And we have someone who's going to help us do that, who sat on a bench, a federal judge. And it's just an honor to be in the presence, even virtually, of this man. He is none other than the Honorable Judge Alexander Williams Jr. He is a director of the Judge Alexander Williams Center for Education, Justice, and Ethics at the University of Maryland's School of College Park. And so, he took the experience of being on a bench, and he could have retired and gone home and fished or played golf or whatever, but he said, no, there's still work to be done. And I want to take all of my experiences and all of the things that I've seen, and I want to come up with solutions that less people will go to a federal judge. That we can
break
that, as you say, Dr. T, that pipeline from school to prison pipeline. And so this is a dynamic individual, and I'm so happy to welcome him to the Cutting Edge. Please join me in welcoming our new friend, Judge Alexander Williams Jr. Let's snap him up as he comes.
We bring you up, Judge. We snap you.
We snap you up, Judge. How you doing, man?
I love it, man, Neil. Thank you so much. It's a joy to be here and talk about an area of my passion, and that's criminal justice and the reform.
Absolutely.
And I can go all day long talk about that. And I, of course, will start off by saying that the system has been so devastating on our people across the years that it's just awful. And the discretion is the biggest problem in the criminal justice system. It's utilized, I think, in a way that has incarcerated and has damaged and injured the people of color. And I'm talking, Mayor, from the very inception of the criminal justice system, as to who is charged, who is investigated, where you parole your police, to charges, to prosecution, and to sentences. And then there's even problems when you talk about those who are returning citizens coming back out of the community. So the whole system is replete with racism and disparities, and it has to be addressed. And that's what I'm trying to do with my Center for Education, Justice, and Ethics, to come up with research and to come out with programs that address issues of disparities affecting, I call it, underserved and disadvantaged communities. That's what I'm about.
And that's incredible. Dr. T, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted you to know, Mayor Neal, that the judge walks the walk and talks the talk. Now, let's recognize that when he came to the University of Maryland to establish his center is named after him. His center has his name on it.
That's what you call balling and shot calling.
I'm just the Center for Health Equity. I mean, he's got his name on the center. So my point is, he brought all of that imprimatur from the time he was appointed to the bench by President Clinton to this moment right now. He is still committed. And Judge, I want you to just say something about the passion you have is for the youth. You've seen all the adults, you've seen the entire system, but you focused on the kids. And you had a boot camp on our campus where you brought 100 kids from all these different schools. Administrators say you can't bring them together, they'll fight. It was one of the most amazing things I saw, Mayor.
Mm-hmm.
The judge did the keynote. Judge, what just gives you hope in the midst of all you've seen broken in that system?
Well, I tell you, Dr. T, again, I grew up, of course, in an area that was a little depressed. I grew up in Washington, D.C. It was, we called it Chocolate City at the time.
Right.
But, I'm not sure what it is now, but
it's still chocolate. It's just, it may have a little cream in it, but it's still chocolate.
Yeah. But I have noticed that most of the defendants,
yes,
victims of homicide, are getting younger and younger and younger. And it's a tough phenomenon that we've got to address. So I've been in all parts of the system. I was a public defender. I was the elected prosecutor for 2 terms and then a judge for 20 years. And I've seen it all. And I have recognized if we're going to get out of this thing, we've got to reach our young people at an early age. And that's why I have programs like the boot camp. And Dr. T, we had 160 young people.
Let me get it right.
Many from Baltimore, from
from
Prince George's County, and anyone else who walked in. And we gave them lectures and discussions, and we heard from them. They were engaged.
Yes.
And they were really interested in the kind of things that we were talking about. So that's what the Judge A.W. Center is all about. And I hope to bring that to Baltimore.
There we go.
On a full-time basis to address the shootings and some of the young people who have challenges there.
Well, we'll talk a little bit later in the show about what's going to be happening on the ground there in Baltimore at the PS 103. And I'll just mention, Sharon, and to our audience, that we're coming up on an anniversary of Thurgood Marshall. He's a Marylander too, Mayor.
Yeah. You just doing a lot of bragging today. I just don't, go ahead.
And
wax
the judge,
eloquently on your bragging tip. Go ahead, man.
And one of the things is to honor that history,
right?
And the judge and other leaders in Baltimore City and our work at the Center for Health Equity are coming together to bring all these things under one roof.
Right.
Under one roof. The very school that Thurgood Marshall went to in Baltimore is being renovated, Mayor.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And the brainchild of that, of course, is Dr. Al Hathaway, a former pastor of Union Baptist. And he looked at this school, this elementary school that had been vacant for decades.
Wow.
He came with the idea we're going to rehabilitate that, refurbish it, and we're going to call it the Thurgood Marshall Amenity Center. That's right. I'm going to be in there, and I thank Dr. Hathaway. I know he's watching right now, but we owe him a debt of thanks.
Well, let's give him some snaps. That's what we do. Judge, this is how we do. We snap them up. That's
right. Reverend Dr. Hathaway.
Give him some snaps. That it's going to take that kind of creativity and thinking out of the box, right? To really transform these systems. And Judge, I was formerly a police officer. I trained police officers, and I understand clearly that there's a disparity in how people of color and other marginalized communities are treated, even at that level.
Yes.
And so we have a lot that we need to talk about as well. Right. All right. So we could talk to you forever, but we are not through. We got much to do. We got to bring on somebody else, man. Now this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to do this differently. I'm going to have Dr. Sharon Cooper introduce this person because she's got a little special relationship that we want to acknowledge. Go ahead, Dr. Cooper.
Good evening. It is my pleasure and privilege to introduce to you Ms. Lauren Haggerty. Lauren is the Chief of Staff and Senior Counsel to the Attorney General for the District of Columbia. Okay, District of Columbia. Lauren serves also as the senior counsel to the Attorney General for the District of Columbia, overseeing the DC Office of the Attorneys General's legislation and public affairs, communications, grants, community engagement efforts, as well as the OAG's legal work. Prior to coming chief of staff, Ms. Haggerty, or Lauren, served as the OAG's trial attorney in OAG's domestic violence and special victims section, and later as special counsel for public safety and youth initiatives. See the tie-in, Judge Williams? Where she focused on youth-focused policies and programming. Prior to joining the OAG's office, Ms. Haggerty served as an assistant district attorney in the Crimes Against Children Division at the Dallas County District Attorney's Office in Dallas. She received a Bachelor of Arts in English from Rutgers University and Juris Doctorate from Loyola University, New Orleans College of Law. I am pleased to introduce to you my future daughter-in-law, Ms. Lauren Haggerty.
Yeah, I knew you were going to eventually get to that part.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, Lauren, how you doing?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you so much for having me, Dr. Thomas, Mayor Neal. I'm so happy to be alongside the Honorable Judge Williams and Dr. Cooper, my future mother-in-law. And if I very quickly can make a plug about Frederick Douglass, his house is reopening on July 4th after 3 years. So if anybody wants to go, I suggest that you read What to the Slave is the 4th of July and make sure you go see his renovated house.
Oh,
where is that renovated house?
That's in Southeast DC.
So Maryland, DC, and y'all, you see what I'm saying? I see this theme coming.
We got some civil rights history.
Yeah, I know y'all got some civil rights history, but you know, it's most of it is down south. Selma, Montgomery, Birmingham, Nashville. Now y'all can get I'm gonna give y'all some of it, but you know, we got a lot of it down here now. I just want y'all to know that. Tuskegee, right?
There you go.
Right.
We need to make a pilgrimage to Tuskegee.
Where you are welcome. You're cordially, as the former mayor of Tuskegee, you're cordially invited to Tuskegee, Alabama, right? Yeah.
Uh-oh.
You know, oh Lord, he talking.
He'll be
out. Okay, let me say this. What we're talking about is thinking out of the box. What we're talking about, because we recognize that, you know, and the judge mentioned it, the number of young men, particularly young men under the age of 25, that's killing each other. You know, I get reports all the time when people are having homicides, and they'll call me and they say, Mayor, this person just got killed. We had 4 people killed this weekend. We had 8 people killed this weekend, all separate incidents in one city alone. Let me give you a case in point. Pensacola, Florida, 280 young men under the age of 25 have been killed in the last 7 years. Right. And when you're talking about that, those are families, those are mothers, those are fathers, those are sisters, those are brothers, those are cousins, those are friends, those are classmates, those are coworkers, those are people who know those people, all adversely impacted by their death. And to see it happen over and over and over again, we have to realize that this is not normal, nor should we normalize this kind of tragedy in our community. We cannot become comfortable.
Yes.
In that should make us uncomfortable. And we all should be uncomfortable with that. And that's why I'm so excited to be engaged in this kind of conversation with you three and Dr. I'm a poet and don't know it. You three and Dr. T. No. Let's here we go. Judge, I want to start with you, and then I'm coming to you, Dr. Cooper. So you just I'm teeing you up, and then I'm coming to you, Lauren. Judge, you talked about sitting on the bench. You obviously know that there's a process before they even get to you, right? And you also know that there are factors that happen in communities that give rise to criminal activity. We understand protective factors and risk factors, right? And we understand that when people lack certain things and they operate with a certain mindset because of the feeling of lack or low self-esteem or other things like that, we realize that this is the fruit of that, right? So instead of creating ways by which we can build esteem, self-esteem, and help people to find themselves and discover themselves, we want to put folk in jail and lock them up and throw away the key. That's not a sustainable model, is it, Judge?
Yeah, I certainly agree with that. We call it the social determinants that breed this type of activity. It may be lack of education, it may be a family deficiency, it may be a lack of employment, it may be health disparities. There's a number of reasons that cause so many people to be vulnerable and end up in a system where I have to end up addressing it and sentencing them. I never liked it. That's one of the reasons I left the bench, because my hands were often tied with the federal sentencing guidelines, and I didn't have a whole lot of discretion to take those things into consideration in imposing sentences. So it's a tough situation, and it has to be addressed as part of the solutions and proposals that we need to talk about today.
Yeah.
You know, Mayor, I want to ask the judge, when you did your opening, you were a public defender, a public defender. You defended the person who was accused of a crime. A prosecutor, the person who made the case against the defendant, and then a judge. So you are right. You've seen it all.
You've seen it all.
But was there a moment when you were on that bench when you said, you know, I'm done, I got to do it differently? What was that turning point for you?
Yeah, I tell you, Dr. T, it got so frustrating that I was in the federal system and didn't have a lot of discretion, particularly to deal with the black young men that came before me and were charged with crack cocaine.
Okay.
That's the big discrepancy. The white folks were charged with powder, but our people loved cooking it, and we made a profit. But the guidelines tripled, doubled those penalties. I never liked it. It wasn't fair, but that's the system. And at what point, Dr. T, did I get fed up? I just got tired. I said, I've got to do something else. I can't continue to sit here, look at those mothers and grandmothers in the courtroom, and then sentence their loved ones to prison. It got to be tough on me. I didn't like it. And so I decided I'm going to move out. I had a lifetime.
Yeah, lifetime appointment as a
left that, and I said, I'm going to open up something in my name where I'm going to bring experience as a public defender, and as a teacher. You know, I've taught, still teaching criminal law down at Howard Law School. So I brought all of that to the table and trying to do something about it.
Wow, I don't call that retirement. I'll call that reimagination.
Yeah, he's working harder now than he did when he was a judge. You know, man, I'm so happy to meet you, man. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. Judge Cooper, we talked about it initially about, you know, this kind of diversionary programming that says that, you know, there are ways that we can rehabilitate. There are ways that we can correct behavior before we get to a point that we put somebody away out of society. And then we recognize that there are multiple ramifications that extend beyond that individual, right? When we put people in prison, then we put economics in prison as well, because a lot of times those people are breadwinners or could be breadwinners. And so we take economics out of our communities. We take fathers out of our communities. We take family members. And we know once you get out of the family for a period of time, that circle closes. And the family, again, is injured by the fact that it doesn't have all of its members. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, and want to actually piggyback to what Judge Williams has mentioned, especially individuals who are in the prison system with addictions. And because of harsh criminal laws that were mandated in the past, they were victims. Not only victims of being incarcerated in overcrowded systems, but they were also victims as far as being in the appropriate setting for the appropriate care. And when you're in a prison system with some sort of substance use disorder, that is going to require timely, effective, and patient-centered care. And for the most part, when you look at studies like studies done by the National Academy of Sciences, basically saying that there are prison systems that are not well equipped to deal with individuals. 5% of the folks who are behind the walls are receiving medicine with their treatment. You look at other statistics where medical directors, the most of those who were in that particular survey report, their particular response was they didn't realize or they were unaware of the treatment patterns with medication for treatment. And if, let's just say a treatment program did exist, it either was behavioral counseling and or detox, no aftercare. So think of those in terms of those people who are being released, and think in terms of the chronic care model. So you see a clear departure, number one. And number two, you see, if I'm not going to receive the appropriate health information, the appropriate support, the appropriate treatment for my particular disorder, then what's going to happen is I'm going to, the probability of me reoffending is going to increase.
Right.
The probability of me continuing with that addiction will worsen. So that's why those diversion programs are in place, such as the drug treatment programs. So they don't see treatment as, the enemy here. They see treatment as an option in lieu of prison. And using that therapeutic approach along with that, collaborative framework involving community partners, the treatment partners, parole and probation, involving employment partners, in order to improve social functioning and reduce recidivism. And of course, the goal or emphasis is long-term sobriety, which saves lives.
Yeah, Lauren, you are right there in the center of everything, and so you see it from a panoramic view. You see the big picture. What's your thoughts? I mean, when you see the number of African Americans, I think it was the Children Defense Fund that talked about the school to prison pipeline. And when you see the number of young men, particularly young Black men that come through your office, right? What's your assessment of that? And just from the prism by which you see it, what can we do to reduce that and to address that in a more systemic way?
I think that that's a really good question. So when I was a prosecutor in Dallas, Texas, I was in the adult system. And then when I became a prosecutor in DC, a lot of my cases came from the juvenile justice system. So a lot of young people under the age of 18. And when I'm talking about juveniles, really what I saw were young Black males, right, in my cases. And it was extremely problematic. And when the Judge Williams was talking about in the beginning, when he was giving his opening remarks and talking about how we need to focus on youth, I wholeheartily agree with that. And so I think that's what led me kind of away from just prosecution and thinking through how do we, do intervention, rehabilitation with these youths, and seeing how do we look up further upstream. Because to truly improve public safety and meet the needs of the kids that we're seeing in the juvenile justice system, we need to get to them before they even touch the system. Right. And so I started leaning more into the public health approaches that we could do with prevention, community engagement, youth programming, youth policy, and legislation. Because even these diversion programs are great and wonderful, we really shouldn't use our criminal justice system to try to get our young people and our Black and Brown people who are suffering in communities the services that they need by putting them in the system. We got to address those root causes earlier.
Right.
You know, Mayor, I'm hearing a judge talk in public health terms, social determinants of health. I'm hearing an attorney talk in public health terms. I just think that it works. You talking about going upstream, that's what we do too. We call it valuing prevention. And so a study just came out recently on the impact of intimate partner violence. And I saw in your background, you looked at issues around violence in youth, intimate partner violence, and a history of child neglect. When they looked downstream, when they became adults, those people were more likely to have type 2 diabetes. That's the health connection in all that we're talking about here. Do you think that, without even reading the article, you think there's a connection between that criminal justice system being touched by it and your actual health? Lauren?
Absolutely. Those adverse childhood experiences, what they call them ACEs,
Right.
those are things when you open any case file for a majority of the kids that we see, or even adults, right, in the justice system, they have all been, a lot of them been through trauma, have been through issues. And I believe that, I don't have the data or the reports in front of me, but when they did the ACE study, they found, right, that people that have traumatic experiences, whether that be homelessness, food scarcity, domestic violence in the home, they were more susceptible to actually having physical health problems later in life, like diabetes, cancer, other types of ailments and problems. I think they absolutely go hand in hand and has been well documented.
You know, one of the things that we recognize is that the things that we're talking about are not esoteric. We know that these things work, and we know what does not work. What I want to talk about, Judge, we're also talking about systems, right? When you have private prisons that are for profit, it becomes, and I'm moving to that space, it becomes an incentive to have more people incarcerated. I don't know if I will indict an entire system, and I certainly don't want to put you into that. But I do want to let you know that there are people who are the beneficiary of this mega system called the criminal justice system, and are not so interested in these kinds of reforms that we're talking about, because it's not profitable to talk like this. Is that hyperbole on my part, or is that a fair statement, Judge?
Yes, it's absolutely correct and accurate. There's a number of people who, across the years, have made a profit because of people being incarcerated. It also gives jobs in certain communities that have no development, jobs as guards and that sort of thing. But Mayor Neal, but before I forget it, I want to go back and talk about something that both Lauren and Dr. Cooper talked about. And again, Dr. T, the connection between health and the criminal justice system. And I would certainly note this, and it's really gotten to me in a long time. I've noticed that today with the fentanyl, they seem to have more treatment programs and diversionary programs rather than incarcerating people. But I'm older than the rest of y'all on here, and I go back to the 70s when I just finished college, when a number of my friends had heroin addiction. And then later on, there was crack addiction. What did they do for those people? They called them junkies.
Yes.
And they sent them to prison.
Yes.
And but now, under this new concept of fentanyl and all of this, all of a sudden, it's not a problem.
Diseases of despair
should be treated. There you go. These people should be treated.
They change it differently, right?
You know
Depends on who. Hold up, Doc. You know why, don't you? Right? Because it's who is doing it, not what it is. It's who it is, and we recognize that. And one of the things, once you know, then you owe. And that's why I'm so appreciative to you, Judge Williams, for recognizing and being truthful and honest with people, because that's what people will gravitate to you when they know that you are authentic and honest. And you've been nothing but that on this show. And I want to just applaud you. So I know this show is not over, but I want to stop and applaud you, because that's what's going to reach our people. When people know we have people who are at all levels, who understand and are willing to change systems so that those systems can be fair and equitable. I noticed that you had ethics as a part of your name. Why did you say that, sir?
Yeah. As part of my training, I also went to divinity school. I have 2 degrees in ethics and divinity.
So you're a judge and a preacher? Boy.
I'm an ordained.
Hold up. You're a preacher? You're a candlestick maker? Or what? What? Are you a plumber too?
I wanted to bring together justice and ethics and religion.
Wow.
So there was a connection of all of it. That's why I went to the divinity school when I was a prosecutor, and there is a connection. And I wanted to, Dr. T, I wanted to get a PhD, but I left it at the master's, and then President Clinton pulled me to the bench, so I wasn't able to go forward with that. But no, I've always had a passion for ethics,
right?
And what's right, what's appropriate, what's moral, the responsibility of elected officials, what they are supposed to do. All of that is embraced under the concept of ethics. And at my policy center in Baltimore, where Reverend Hathaway has this thing in Thurgood Marshall Center, I'm going to have an ethics academy.
That's right.
Where we're going to teach and give information to young people and to elected officials and to citizens the concept of ethics.
That's right.
What that embraces. So I'm into that.
Now, Judge, here's the parallels, because in the public health space, especially when it comes to clinical trials and all this research, ethics is also a very important component. And the survivors of the U.S. Public Health Service study of untreated syphilis in the Negro male, 1932 to 1972, when that study stopped, they had congressional hearings that led to new guidelines in ethics.
Yes.
Do no harm,
respect
autonomy of the person, and the principle of justice, Judge. The principle of justice in bioethics says those who bear the burden of disease should not be denied the benefit. We have benefits to cure many of these diseases, prevent many of them, and they're not reaching our people. That's a violation of the principle of justice. So I'm so glad you put ethics in the mix.
Yes, you know, I'm so glad you did that as well. You know, and I think about, as we talk about health and health disparities, the number of states that have not expanded Medicaid.
Yes.
Right. Alabama being one of them. And we had Dr. Francesca Weeks down at the summit, Dr. T, and I want to publicly say she did an extraordinary job in laying out the devastating impact of not having expanded Medicaid for 10 states primarily. And you have 8 states that are doing something, although marginally. But Alabama and another state are doing nothing. But yet and still, we're spending more money to not expand Medicaid than if we were to expand Medicaid, and more people would have access to health, which is a part of the problem that Judge Williams and Lauren and Dr. Cooper talked about. Right. And so that's the problem we have when politics overrides the will and the betterment of the people. That's a problem. Judge, excuse me, Dr. T, you wanted to say something. Go ahead.
Well, it hurts everybody, and I think the pandemic really pulled the curtain back, and a whole lot of people want to close the curtain. We ain't closing the curtain, Lauren. Judge, we keeping it wide open. And Sharon knows we've been in this space the whole time. Finally, we recognize that hyperlocal matters. Right. And even if we improve access, if there's no trust, people still won't engage. And that's why it's so important what Lauren's doing with around these issues of trauma. And then what happens when the survivors, you talk about all those young Black men who had been killed, for every person actually murdered through gun violence, there's almost twice as many survivors. They're in wheelchairs, they're disabled. Then they have their whole family is impacted by that. And as the mayor says, there goes wealth, there goes income, there goes the psychological energy to just deal with everyday life. That has to be in the mix too as we move forward. That's why it's so important what the judge is doing, and what we'll do at the Thurgood Marshall Center is bring all this under one roof, Mayor.
Wow.
All this under one
This is
roof.
incredible what you all are doing. And this is absolutely, and should be a model, scalable nationally, right? So you all developed a template and then bring it down south, bring it out west, bring it everywhere. It needs to be all over the place.
You know, we have.
I'm certainly going to be pushing it.
You know, we have a new mayor here.
We have
a new governor.
That's what I knew. You had a governor. Don't you think I know
first
that?
Black governor.
You always try to flex on me.
I want to bring America to Maryland. We're going to scale it.
I have to give Maryland some kudos. I mean, Maryland is you all are doing some things that deserve spotlight, right? You all earn the fact that we need to look at some of the things that you're doing. Let me do this, Dr. T. I want to get a pulse, and kind of get a feel for where people are. Tee it up, Dr. T.
So Lauren, Judge Williams, Dr. Cooper knows this. Every time we do this show, we've done this now over 3 years, we ask people, think of a word right now that best reflects how you're feeling in this pandemic. It is not over. We can talk endemic, but we're in whatever phase we're in. What word best reflects how you're feeling right now, Lauren? And then put as many words as you can in that chat. And the team behind the scenes is going to build a cloud. The more people who say a word, the bigger the word will be. For the next 60 seconds, and those of you out in social media land, you can use your Q&A box, put the words in, and for the next 60 seconds, we're going to get a pulse beat of where this audience is. And we have people from all over the United States listening to us, and our Wellness Warriors and Hair Network are out there. And at some point, we'll be bringing them up to interact with each of you. Yeah. And the word cloud gives us a really good idea of the temperament and the tone. And it's really interesting to see what that looks like over the 3 years we've been doing this work.
Well, we have a gynecologist out there we can bring up. She's been with us a long time, Dr. Carol Ritter. Let's bring Dr. Ritter up, and let's let her come up and let's engage Dr. Ritter. Because you are a very integral part of not only what we do, but the healthcare system. And we are talking about, there is a direct correlation between what we are experiencing that moves into the court system with even health, right? And the kind of environmental contributors to behavioral issues. And you see it at many levels, being a gynecologist as well. Dr. Ritter, would you please introduce yourself and then tell us what's your thoughts about the conversation?
Sure, yes. Yeah, so I'm Carol Ritter. I'm a OBGYN. I've stopped practicing OB because of the discretion of the system. It's another story, but I love that term. It was an eye-opener to me being in the profession, coming from Wisconsin, and then doing my residency at Hopkins. So, you talk about starting young. What about in utero, right?
Wow.
So I saw my first incarcerated pregnant woman in a delivery room at Hopkins. Now, I'm just a naive young girl from Wisconsin. I'm like, what the hell is going on here, right? I never thought anybody would put handcuffs and on a person pregnant and labor, they did. It's the discretion of the system to do that. So, I looked into it more, but it's the system was on both sides. These pregnant women weren't getting OB care. So they would purposely do a crime to go in jail because they would get some kind of health care there.
Wow.
I was mind blowing, right? How could we do this in our country to women who are pregnant? Oh, so, I fought to try to get handcuffs off of women in jails,
Wow.
when they come in labor, like, and it took a long time to reverse that law.
Well, where are they going to run? Just tell me, how far can you run pregnant?
Exactly. We are very
they-
powerful, us women. We have superpowers.
Right. You're going to fly away, right?
But Mayor,
Yeah.
as we're listening to Dr. Ritter, I think we're all being called to step up. We're all being called we finally are at these stages. We have these degrees. We're in these positions.
Mhm.
We got to put that on the line sometimes for what's right.
Right.
And so for her to say, it is as young as you were, to see a woman handcuffed to the labor table.
Who would do that? To this,
Right.
And it was happening around the country, was happening in
yeah.
And this is not unique to
But no wonder we
labor,
have
right?
youths who start out with ACEs,
Okay,
this
okay.
is this is where it starts, right? So
Right.
my purpose in this whole thing is to not forget the women in this violence, that and really, if you want to intervention, prevention, but it's transformational to start at birth in the community. Safe communities have to start by taking care of your pregnant women. 0 maternal mortality is my goal. 0 infant mortality would be great too, but maternal mortality, don't get me started there. That's a preventable disease.
Wow, that's incredible. For those who want to hang out with us up here, if you would put on your camera and I can bring you up, and if you put your camera on, I know that you want to speak. We would love to have you join in on the conversation. This is a conversation about reimagining, about thinking out of the box, and so let's go down to Pine Bluff. That's not Little Rock. It's a different city.
Pine Bluff, Arkansas. Dorothy
Hey,
Reynolds.
Dorothy Reynolds, how you doing?
Unmute yourself, Dorothy. And unmute and introduce yourself.
I'm Dorothy Reynolds. I live in Whitehall, Arkansas, but I'm from Pine Bluff, Arkansas.
Hold up, now you gonna add in another place, now you chastising me about saying something else. Now you gonna add Whitehall in it. How you doing, Miss Reynolds? Everything's good with you?
I'm fine, and belated Happy Father's Day.
Thank you so very much. Absolutely. Thank you.
But I'm fine. I'm busy working on our lupus awareness event, and also celebrating our 16th anniversary, being open 16 years, with the Impressive Styles Beauty and Barbershop and Elite Cuts Barbershop.
Well, that's give us some snaps. That's a
There we
wonderful
go.
thing. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's a milestone. Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm reminded of when I used to work with, as a career, with children, especially children who had problems. Once there was this community, and it looked so much like the community I live in, and kids kept being washed up on the shores, coming up barely alive, almost dead. And so someone says, we need to jump in there and see what's wrong with them. So they would pull one out today, and tomorrow, the next day, they would pull another. And so many kids kept coming. Someone realized that we needed to go to the back of the line and find out what's causing these kids to fall in, because that was the only thing that was going to save them. And until they did that, could they solve the problem? So I feel like we need to go back to that, because these kids are falling in that water. We're losing them for a reason, and no one is researching to find out what is the problem. What is the cause of it? And many times it's a lot of problems, but instead of incarcerating someone, we need to help them and repair them in some emphasis. Yeah. But anyway, Dr. T, one of my friends went to church with me Sunday, and he took his sister. I finally met his father, and we're working on the rest of them. But I would, where people act like they're afraid and won't come near these kids, all they want is some attention. Because after church, we went and got food to eat, and we had a good time. And I found out so much about what caused them to do some of the things that they do.
Right.
So thank you for the encouragement.
I just want to say for the audience here that Miss Reynolds had no idea before shots at the shop and all this that she'd be turning her barbershops and salons into vaccine clinics, that she'd be giving out N95 masks and helping people do rapid tests. But one day she saw youth across the street. And if you read the paper, they make you afraid of our teenagers. She walked out among them, Lauren. She walked out in the crowd of these young people, Judge. And now they call her grandmother.
Right.
She can say things to them other people can't say, and they listen to her.
And make your friends before you need them, Dr. T.
There we go. So I just want to snap Dorothy, because we need more Dorothys. And we had her director of her health department come on this show and say just that. We need more Dorothys to help save our youth.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Dorothy.
Yeah, people don't care. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Yeah.
And that's very important. We're gonna do that. Let me do this. Mr. Rock, get ready. I'm gonna bring you up. Mr. Russell, get ready. I'm gonna bring you up, but we're gonna go to our
word cloud
first, and then we're gonna kind of go through that, and then we're gonna look at there, man.
Wow.
Grateful, love, inspired. And now what this means for those who are watching it first, the words that are the largest are the words that were said the most, or that were put in the word cloud the most. And the ones that stop out is love, grateful, and inspired. And you know what? Inspiration is merely to breathe life into. And grateful is merely an appreciation for life. And love is leaving others very encouraged.
There we go.
And so I'm encouraged about what I see here. Just a beautiful mosaic of expression that comes from us. Man, this is beautiful. I just love it. It's a powerful thing.
And Judge and Lauren, Dr. Cooper knows this, even in the height of the pandemic, the clouds in this group were positive. We'd have Zooms with our medical and our public health people, and they were just beaten up. And we believe it's because they're at the front line in a business. Our barbershops are small businesses. They're not nonprofits. They're not churches, but they are sacred spaces. And I think that made a difference, where they could literally see their clients improve. They could literally give life-saving information to their clients. And we want to keep that going. We want to keep it going.
And I think in addition to that, not just in their spaces where they work in their salons and barbershops, but in this space, this is a safe space. This is a place where we come together and we share our truth. I often say, Dr. T, that we all are possessors of some truth, and as we bring our truths together, then and only then do we get closer to the truth. And so you are in a safe space to share your truth, whatever it is, and we are appreciative of it. Let's bring up Mr. Leon Rock. Your favorable reputation, sir, precedes you. They've been talking about you. They say your ears must be itching. That's what we say down south. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing fantastic. You all doing well?
Oh, wonderful. Supersonic.
Well, I'll tell you, you all are amazing. I've been listening to the program. This is my first time on, I have to admit, but I've been listening to the program with amazement. You all are fantastic. Judge Williams, amazing. Mayor, you, my friend, my new friend, are amazing. Dr. T, come on now. Lauren, all of you all are just amazing in so many ways. And by the way, I got to introduce myself. My name is Leon. Last name is Rock. I'm a diabetic, and I've been a diabetic for 20 years. 20 years ago, I learned that I have diabetes, and I went to an organization to find out what I could do to actually address my diabetes as an African American. And guess what? That organization was a failure. They didn't give me the information I needed to assist me in controlling my diabetes. When I learned that I had diabetes, I was at, guess what? 500. Yeah, my sugar level was at 500 when I learned that I had diabetes. The doctor who I had, nice guy, not an African American. I wish I had an African American endocrinologist at the time. He said, go figure it out. I said, well, wait a minute. Tell me a little bit about diabetes. He said, go figure it out. Do your research. I went to the major organization. They told me as well, go figure it out. I said, well, why don't you have any Black folks on your page? Oh, they're woke now, but before 20 years ago, they had no Black people on their page, on their website. And when I contacted their customer service to ask, what should I do as an African American about diabetes? They said as well, in many ways, go figure it out. Because guess what? We don't have any material related to diabetes for Black men. At that point, I said, you know what? I got to pull together a group of people and do something about this. So I said, I'm from Boston, by the way, Massachusetts. And by the way, my good new friend, Mr. Mayor, guess what? Massachusetts is one of a few states that had a Black governor. And guess what? I live in Silver Spring, Maryland now. And guess what?
You know what? Maybe you can come down Alabama. Maybe we can. It seems like you get a Black governor everywhere you go. You welcome down here.
All right.
Mayor, let me just say this. It's amazing how time flies. We had our launch of our Cut for Health, our training of our barbers and stylists to address type 2 diabetes.
Right.
And two folks showed up with the badge, as you can see behind Leon's head there. And I just assumed it was the American, what. Right. And I was so happy. I said, I'm so glad they finally got some Black staff. And then they showed me closely. It's the African American Diabetes Association. You talk about, you got the power, Mayor. Leon stood on that and created the African American Diabetes Association. And now we are working in partnership with them to bring those services into our hair network, into our Wellness Warrior infrastructure. So I just want to thank Leon. Let's snap Leon for creating something we can all use. Right. It's a national organization, and we can now develop materials culturally tailored for us, by us.
Well, let me say,
isn't that what this country's saying right now? We need to do?
Absolutely. Let me say this, and I was not going to even mention it, but let me say this because I think it's appropriate. And once you know, then you owe. Just on Monday, my baby brother died of diabetes. We've not even buried him yet. And so to say that and to recognize how we all are impacted, and there is no one that does not know someone who's dealing with and having to navigate the challenges of diabetes. No one, everyone knows someone. Me, one of the hosts, my brother died Monday of complications from diabetes. We're doing funeral services now. That's what I've been doing all day. All right. So I want you all to know, Mr. Rock, that you got a rock and a friend from me, right?
Thank you,
As whatever I can do to be an advocate for the African American Diabetes Association, I'm there for you, man.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
And this show is a platform to we have influencers listening to us, Mr. Rock, and they are fired up and ready to go.
Very good.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Let's bring up Andre Russell. Let's go down to ATL. That's Atlanta, Georgia. We're not just gonna go to Atlanta, Georgia. We're gonna go into the busiest airport in the world, Atlanta Airport, and we're gonna go into a barbershop that's owned by this brother right here. Hey, Andre Russell, how you doing today, sir?
How are you doing? How are you guys? Thank you for the introduction, because you're all right. We are at the busiest airport in the world.
We sure know busy now.
And we're looking for help too. We need some barbers that want to stay, some experts that want to stay busy. And I appreciate what's going on tonight. We are expanding. You guys are doing such a great job. I'm going to have to figure out how to get one of you guys up here so I can have a third person to talk to the people that are passing by the barbershop, because they promised us 350,000 people a day from now till the 4th.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I need help. Yeah, we need dedicated people to come on in. It's too late for them to appreciate this part, but we have more of these coming up during the course of the year.
Right.
So yeah.
Andre.
Yes, sir. I'm sorry. You know me. I go on.
No. But we have a judge. We have a judge here. We have an attorney here. We got a diversion expert here. I want to hear your thoughts on our young people.
Well, the young people are doing fine. I want to talk to the judge. He had some interesting things to say. Well, because we came up with pretty much in the same era, and I used to go around to some of the boys' clubs and things like that, looking for more kids to mentor. And he sounded like one of the judges we put in front of the kids, and they still got 3 years. And I said, "Well, damn."
Well, you have to.
He said
the judge said that they're sentencing guidelines, right? And he's already told you that.
Well, no, he said that, but I just wanted to bring it back up. You know me, I have to.
Right.
I don't want him to go away thinking that he's the only person in here that's thought like that. And the young ladies are doing an excellent job. They are still fighting the fight, and you guys know that every time I come, I'll look for some beautiful women to get on stage and to do some of these political things, because we have a lot of guys that are up there that's already screwed it up. We need new blood. You guys are doing a fine job, of course, but
see, I knew you were gonna say that, because you know I was about to get on you.
Yeah, well, yeah. Yeah, but
go ahead.
We need new blood, and both of these young women project themselves well. They both project themselves well. And apparently it's going to get better, because one of them is going to start having grandchildren in a minute. So, yeah. So
what you said, Dr. Cooper?
That's Dr. Cooper.
I already have great grand. I have great grand.
I have great grands. Oh, wow.
Oh, okay. All right.
So this is not new to her, right?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Okay. Well, hey, wait. It's new to one of them.
Talking about the generations. Look how we've brought the kids in, even in utero. We had Dr. Ritter on with her little grandchild. Dr.
Ritter, where's your little grandchild? Is he or she somewhere close?
She just went to bed. She
went to bed. She was so pretty. Oh, wow, just beautiful.
Six
I
months on
just,
the 4th of July.
6 months. Oh,
The 4th of
look,
July.
look out. You see how Dr. Ritter says it. Oh, 6 months for the 4th of July. Now, this is somebody who delivers babies all the time, but you see how she says 6 months. She's got your heart already, right there.
I know. I'm
You know,
totally
that's
passionate about
that,
her and about all women who have babies. It's a tough thing to raise a
really is.
child, right? We need help.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what it is. When they come into the world, we need to be working on how can we create an environment where they can be the true and perfect manifestation of God's intent for them from the beginning, right? And I think it's the failing when you have this many people that we incarcerate. That's a societal failing. We need to look introspectively and say, what is it that we are not doing properly? Is it the education system? Right? Is it the fact that we don't have equity in terms of housing and food security and all the things, the social determinants of health that we talked about earlier? What we know how to deal with those things. We have resources that we can mitigate those factors with protective factors. We know what to do. Why don't we do it? And I think that's the question we need to ask ourselves. That's where I want to go out, because we got about 10 minutes and then we got to go 9 minutes.
I just want
I
to
want to talk about it. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead, Dr. Cooper.
We also have to think in terms like what Judge Williams had said earlier. Back in the 70s, if you recall, well, some of you may not, Governor Rockefeller, he passed punitive drug policies that were the most punitive in the United States ever. We are still receiving or feeling the residual effects of those particular laws. So when you're talking about laws that have been in place and they have already, as a result or consequence, infiltrated the prisons with Black and brown people that are already incarcerated with long sentences, then it's kind of hard to break, like you said, that cycle of behavior when we don't provide, like you mentioned earlier, Mayor Neal, resources within the community, employment. We wanted job training. We wanted, food and school. What are those resources? And one of the things that I've learned throughout my journey in my career is, people feel that there's a lack of something that they feel is in place that prevents them from being able to do the best they can do. And some of those folks, unfortunately, will, direct their attention to the criminal justice system and go forth with that behavior. So I think in terms, when we look at holistically, we say, prevent them from going to jail, but we need to find what, like you said, interventions out there, whether it's, youth programs, whether it's programs for those who are adults. Because studies like, for instance, when we had the unrest in Baltimore, and the biggest factor for the unrest was people said they didn't have jobs.
Wow.
So they developed a special diversion program because they were in the system to prepare them and for them to be sustainable and to take care of themselves and their families. Wow. So these are the, things when we talk about this, we understand the factors, but what are the interventions, proposed interventions and funding out there that can support and make them sustainable?
Yeah. You triggered a thought, and I want to go to Lauren because, obviously there are generational perspectives in prisons by which people see from different generations. I want you to help me to understand or to appreciate, if at all, how social media influence behavior, to include culture, the music culture and other things, and whether or not people are mimicking those behaviors that are antithetical to our legal system's standards.
I think that's a great question. Really quickly, I want to touch on something you were saying before about like Medicaid and thinking about the prison system and economics. It costs far much more to detain and hold a youth and adult than it does to actually give them the services and the things and the resources that they need out in the community. If you're a student of history, exactly what Dr. Cooper and Judge Williams were talking about, the tough on crime policies that we saw, especially in the 80s and 90s, did not work. Incarcerating people for a longer time does not reduce recidivism, nor does it improve public safety. And so we're supposed to be getting smarter along the way. That is why we have to address these root causes of crime. Now, when it comes to social media, we don't know the full effects that the pandemic has had on our kids. We're not going to know that for years. But what I can tell you is that it's created a lot of isolation, and especially as it relates to social media, I have seen it, especially in a lot of my juvenile cases. Back in the day when I had beef with somebody in middle school, high school, I might catch you at recess, I might catch you on lunch, I might catch you outside the bus stop. But now in real time, I can dish you 24 hours a day, right? And then all of a sudden it just escalates things. And when we think about the influx of guns, ghost guns, how easy it is how easily accessible it is to children, it's a recipe for disaster. It's a powder keg. And social media is really just helping exacerbate that, as you think about how people are projecting themselves online with guns, with drugs, with money, this false narrative about I'm tough. And it just leads to really dire consequences that we're seeing play out. With young people who don't know how to mediate conflict in a healthy, productive way.
Lauren is so right. And some of these mass shootings that people have mentioned, that they got this hate and all this right off the social media. They got it. So it is a factor, and I think it's contributing to a lot of things that we don't want.
You know, Mayor, when we look back during the civil rights movement and throughout our history here, the courts were an important place where we made progress. So here's my question, Lauren. Are the courts still a place where we can bring our grievance as it relates to these health disparities being caused by these social determinants, and literally not just talk to the healthcare system or to the insurance companies, but literally go to the courts? Is there a place in the courts to move the needle?
I think there is. It's not the quickest by any stretch of the imagination, sometimes remedy, but I think the law is one of the single most powerful tools that we have. So when we talk about addressing health disparities, when we talk about addressing housing inequality and equity, I think the law is still extremely powerful tool, and so are the courts. But that's why we need people like Judge Williams on the court, right? That's why we need prosecutors who have great prosecutorial discretion, public advocacy attorneys, nonprofit attorneys who are still willing to fight that good fight and who recognize those disparate treatment.
And that's why, Mayor, we need attorneys to help us think through what might be such a case. Think about what happened during the pandemic. To not deliver a life-saving vaccine to people in need might be a violation of some principle somewhere. And then how might it apply to the fact that we have people suffering right now from diseases that have treatments and that are preventable, but they're not receiving the services?
You know, part of it too, Dr. T, is it has to be a multi-pronged approach.
That's right.
Right. It's not one thing. There is no silver bullet. It's not either or. It's both and.
Okay.
And I think we have to look at it from that vantage point. What I want to do is I want to because we got only 7 minutes. I can't believe we just have 7 minutes before we have to call it a day. I'm going to go, Dr. Cooper, I'm going to start with you, because I want to talk about what practically can we do at this point? Not a silver bullet, but what practically can we do? Because we can pontificate and we can wax eloquently about the issues and restate the problem. But I wanted to leave this conversation with practical measures we can do to address what we are discussed today.
Wow, good question. I think, again, we need to start with what the problem is, collect whatever data that we need. And most people think, oh, quantitative data. I am an advocate of both quantitative and qualitative data, hearing the voice from the communities, viewing those issues from the lens of individuals who are in the community, being able to elevate that information to policymakers. Like when I go to meetings with the state senators, this is what they're looking for. They're looking for people that's the voice, the ears, the eyes of the community, and to share this information with them so that they can advance whatever needs to be advanced to the appropriate legislation in order to bring about monies to address areas where we have shortages. Like we have a shortage of nursing. So now there's funding in place to educate or, pay for nursing education in the state. There's money now for issues related to disparities for maternal and child health. So, those are kind of things that we have to be present, not only on these calls, but in the community and face to face with the legislators so that they know who you are and, reinforcing that message that, hey, this is not being met within my community. And then sitting down with the hospitals and serving on those advisory boards to direct them, because as I, shared with Dr. T, you can build a building with nice glass and the architecture is absolutely exquisite. But if there's no connection to the community, then it diminishes the purpose. So again, and making sure, as we said earlier, health messaging, connecting to accessible services, and making sure that people are able to get to those services, understand those services. And one last thing, our community health workers, our fearless warriors, that's the gap. And people don't understand that. And I think Mr. Leon, he at that point, well, they told me this and that and the other. But when you have a case manager and or a community health worker, that fills in that gap. They know the understanding. They can break it down in language that's going to allow me to understand and help me to navigate and understand some of the nuances that exist and getting that particular care and following up, the value of following up.
Wellness warrior, hair wellness warriors go to the hill. We got to be in that mix in the
and I'm used to going to the hill, so we can do it.
All right.
Good. That Judge Williams, I probably asked that question thinking about what you've already done. You have taken your passion and made it purpose. And so I see that in the creation of your center. And so I want to ask you in a practical way, what can we do to address the many issues that we've enumerated here this evening?
Thank you, Mayor Neal. And I think we've hit on it. Policymakers now, and they're in a position to make some things happen. We used to talk about civil rights, but we need to now talk about civil responsibility, meaning people who have a position of influence can do something. And we have now responsible prosecutors. We got some very progressive prosecutors around the country who are making a difference. They're thinking out of the box. They're doing some other things. I appreciate what Ms. Reynolds, Dorothy Reynolds said that in the comments that she made. And I want to tell Ms. Reynolds that I haven't spent a lot of time in Arkansas, but I can tell you you had a civil rights lawyer down there who hired me named Wiley Branton. And he hired me as a law professor, and also a president named Bill Clinton is from Arkansas. He appointed me to the bench. So
you endeared to Arkansas.
I love Arkansas, and I also, appreciate Mr. Rock's views and thank him for just getting information. That's another thing we need to do. People need to get information about these things, get educated. And so thank you for starting and creating that Association of African American Diabetics. And then finally, and I do remember Deval Patrick. I remember him, the master.
Absolutely. That's exactly right.
And then finally, again, I can't miss Mr. Russell. Mr. Russell, the barber down there in Atlanta. He talked about that judge that got 3 years anyway. And I would just tell you, You all need to get more progressive judges, merciful judges like me. And I'll give you one story and I'll leave it alone. I had a guy who was helping his son deal with crack, and the sentencing guidelines called for 75 years because of the amount or what have you. So that's what I had to give him, 75. And so the guy stood up. I said, "If you have anything you want to say before I sentence you?" He said, "Judge, I'm 75 years old. I can't do 75 years. I need some mercy." So I told him, "Well, just do as many as you can, sir."
Judge,
I'll leave it at that.
we love you, Judge.
Yeah, we got an intelligent panel here tonight.
Yeah. We got the little thing we're gonna do at the end, but Attorney, I'm gonna call you for this last time. You told me Lauren is fine. Attorney Lauren Haggerty, would you please give us our final statements in terms of practicality?
Sure, and I'll keep mine really short because Judge Williams already stole it, but community engagement, right? We can't do this without getting community buy-in. We have to change community norms, and we do that through education and awareness. There's no reason why we have just such an abundance of resources in this country, and they just aren't shared equitably. And so we need people to be aware of the disparate treatment, know where to get services, know where to get resources, and make the necessary call to action on those policymakers and politicians, hold them accountable.
Thank you much. Dr. T, you want to do a little something before we leave?
I just want to say that, as an educational institution, it's so exciting to me to have the judge here and his center, what I'm doing in the Center for Health Equity, Sharon Gibbs Cooper over there. And now we have new friends in Lauren, Mr. Rock with diabetes, Dr. Ritter bringing our medical team. We're going to bring all this into the Thurgood Marshall Center, Judge. But we are also training that next generation of health professionals. And one of our members behind the scene, go ahead, Meg, we're going to send her off. This is Maggie Daly. She's going to be leaving us, heading to medical school. I'm convinced she will not be the same person. And I'll put it like this: that school won't be the same after they get touched by her.
Absolutely. She's incredible.
Mayor and our guests, particularly Sharon, you've been here. Closing comments you want to send to Maggie?
Well, one is, Maggie, your contribution to what we've been doing here for the last several years is immeasurable. Words are inadequate. So whatever word I'd use, I would go back and say, well, that wasn't enough. So words are not going to be what I would use. I want to just say two words: thank you. Thank you for being who you are. Thank you for elevating this show to excellence based on your contribution. I leave you with what I always say: love is leaving others very encouraged. And we love you. And we know that you love us, because being with you is encouraging. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Maggie. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Maggie.
We're going to grow our own doctors.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Maggie.
Thank you, Maggie. And with that being said, Dr. T, I'm going to say this as I always say it. Remember these two words. Remember that I love you with the perfect love. But more importantly, remember this: you got the power. Until the next time on The Cutting Edge, have a wonderful day.
You got the power.